Hello, Trail Finders. Today we are going to talk about triggers. Triggers are a piece of Apex code that executes before or after a particular type of operation. So what are these operations are? These are the same DML operations which we studied in the previous video: insert, update, delete, merge, upsert, and undelete. So on any of these operations, you can run a trigger either before that particular operation or after that operation. How would these operation can be run? You can do an Apex DML operation to do these, to run these triggers, to basically fire these triggers, or you can have a UI action and, using the save button or a delete button on the UI, you can the triggers as well. For example, let's talk about before insert. So if the record is being inserted into the database, then what will happen is the moment you click save on the screen, a series of operation will occur, and we would understand this series of operations when we talk about the order of execution. But basically a series of operations will occur, and then that's when your trigger will also run. And then once all of these operations are complete, then it would commit your particular changes into the database, and then your after operations will complete. And all this is single transaction so far. Once your after operations are complete, then it will do a commit again into the database, and it will then close this particular transaction. If there's error at any point, even before the commit or after the commit, then your whole transaction is rolled back and no changes are committed into the database. So this is very important to understand. If at any point in time you run into any of the errors, then the whole transaction will roll back and nothing gets committed into the database, whether it is before or after the first commit. The only difference between before trigger is that it is done before the first commit into the database, and after is done when the first commit is done into the database. When this commit is done and you are doing an insert operation, this is the time you actually get your Salesforce ID. Before this, you don't have a Salesforce ID. And that is the only difference for before and after. And we'll talk about it why we need ID in certain transactions, certain triggers, and why we don't need an ID in certain triggers. And hence they can be before and which ones can be after. Go to the developer console and I'll show you how do we write a trigger. File, new, and so far we have been using Apex class. This time we are going to use Apex trigger. And this time, let's say I want to create a trigger on account. So I'll say trigger on account, or you can say account trigger, either way. We'll have to select the object type as well on which particular object this trigger is running. So it has triggers are object based, and you have to define on which particular object when a DML operation is done, then you want to run this trigger. Your trigger a name, and then you define which particular object this particular trigger is supposed to run on. Then you do a submit. This will give you a blank class, or you can say an Apex trigger like this. It would say it is a trigger, it is not a class. Then you have the trigger name, on which particular object it is running, and the kind of operation. We just spoke about insert, update, delete, merge, upsert, and undelete. All of these can be added here. So you can have before update, before delete, after insert, after update, and so on, right? And after delete. So you can add as many as you want, or you can add only one or two based on your business requirement. How do you want to trigger operations on this particular object? And then inside this, you can have your business logic. So let's say I want to do system.debug. I am running from a trigger. So this particular comment is coming from a trigger. How do we see now that this particular trigger is running? So you do not call a trigger straight away. Triggers are fired from a particular operation. So like before insert, before update, after insert, after update. So let's see, what do we need to do? Our trigger is running on account and insert is there. So what do? We insert an account here. So how do we insert an account? We'll do account ACC object is equal to new account, and then we'll do ACCOPG dot name is equal to test one, and we'll say insert account object. Yeah, let's do a open log and see what happens now. And now do you see this particular debug statement has come up twice that I'm running from a trigger. Why it has come up twice? Because once it ran before insert and second time it ran after insert. Hence, we have got two transactions here. If you want to see that, it is actually coming from before or after, you can actually see that as well. Here it says before insert. This is further lying inside the other debug lines which come in your debug log. So here it says trigger on account trigger event before insert. And if we see the other one, that one comes on trigger on account trigger event after insert. So hence, this particular logic is running up twice, once from before and once from after. I hope this would have made some sense as to how we create triggers and what is the idea behind writing a trigger. So let's say there's a particular field on your account object. You want to get that updated based on the other fields within the account or based on the user who's creating that particular account. Then you use triggers, right? Something which cannot be done from flows. Then you come to triggers and write this particular code using triggers.